Okay, so you want to use IPUMS for your data source. Great. There are a number of different resources on this website. So if you go to ipums.org, it pulls up this main page, and there are many different data sources that can be extracted from this website. So IPUMS USA houses things like U.S. Census data or American Community Survey data from the Census Bureau. CPS contains the current population survey. Whenever you see this word microdata, it means like we're down at the smallest level. So it's not like average smoking rate in a state. It's asking individual people, do you smoke? Something like that. Okay. So most of these are all microdata. Some of you may be interested in using the IPUMS health surveys, which includes the NHIS or MEPS. MEPS is about medical expenditure. NHIS is just a health survey, a general health survey. Okay. So whichever one you want to get started on, click visit the site. I'm going to do USA, I guess, but follow the one you want. You're probably going to need to register if you've never been here before. Okay. Click apply for access. It's really more of a formality than a application, but it already knows that I've registered, so all you will need to fill out is your name, institution, jury, student doing economics research, and then you just check the boxes to agree that you won't distribute the data to other people, and you will cite the data, and you will not try to figure out who these people are in your data, like try to figure out if your uncle filled out the survey or something. It's supposed to remain confidential. All right, but after you're actually in, so I'm gonna click log in. There we go, I'm in. I'm gonna go back to where we started, ipums.org. Make sure we can all follow how to get where we're going. So now I'm logged in. Now I'm actually gonna get started on extracting data. So I'm using IPUMS USA. Use whichever data source you're interested in using. If you're using health surveys, that'll be very obvious. Otherwise, the biggest difference between CPS and USA, USA is where the American Community Survey is, and asks a lot of very detailed questions, but it's not timely. It's only once a year. The sample is quite large, but it's only once a year, but very detailed. CPS is more timely because it's monthly, but it's not as detailed. Like, for example, there's no question about income, asking people how much money they make in the CPS. It's generally used for calculating labor force participation rate, unemployment rate, these very important statistics that the U.S. government wants to know about on a monthly basis. Okay, so it's more timely that way. I'm going to use IPUMS USA. And we're here. So again, let's give you some kind of a sense if you want to read this paragraph here about what this data source is doing. We're going to do get data. So what it's going to allow you to do is create a custom data set. Pick and choose which variables you want to pull from this data source. Okay, so click get data. And now this is going to be the interface that you're going to use to decide and pull which variables you want. So let's just start here. Okay, everything's going to be broken up by household level variables, person level variables, or there's a search. Household level variables means everybody who fills out a survey that lives in the same household is going to get the same characteristics because, for example, click geographic. Everybody who lives in the same household, well, they live in the same state, so the state is just going to be repeated across everybody in the same household. So this might be a lot to take in at first, so here we are, geographic. And what this is showing me is first, each row is a different variable that I could get from this data source. And each column is referencing when or which data source, and typically it's which year, you can actually get this variable for. So for example, if I were to use the 2022 ACS, I will not be able to figure out are the people who fill out these surveys living in urban or rural places. At least there's not a variable for it directly. Whereas there is if I did the 1990 1% census. So now if all of this is a lot, which it is kind of, what you might do before you start choosing variables is say, look, I already know which years I want to pull, so I can do select samples, okay? So I'm gonna get rid of the defaults and say, look, ACS has a lot of data. I'm good with just 2022, so maybe I choose that. Generally, more recent is always better. Just depends on your research question though. Submit sample selections, and now up here in the data cart it's saying you haven't chosen any variables you want yet, but one sample, which is you want 2022 data, and now this geographic category is just going to show me which variables are available in 2022 because that's the sample you selected. So yeah, probably I want to know state, so let me click add to the cart on state FIP. I might wonder, hold on, what is state FIP? Like, what is this variable actually? So if I click here on the variable name, we can get a lot of information about every single variable in this data source. So state FIP reports the state in which the household is located, and it's using a coding scheme, FIPS, which is alphabetical. So a lot of the variables you're going to pull, no matter which data source you're using on IPUMS, you're going to get codes. So like I'm going to get in my data, once I pull it, I'm going to get a variable called state FIP, and each row or this column is going to tell me which state every person in my data lives in, but it's not going to say Alabama. It's going to say 1. They live in state 1. That's Alabama. So if you click on codes, this will tell you what those codes correspond to, which you're probably going to want to know once you start messing with your data. I want to know if the person in the first row of my data lives in state 19. Well, I don't know what state that is. I might want to come back and refer to this. There will be an easy way for us to do that. I'll talk about that in a bit. Category available view just tells you, is this category available? Like, will people be able to choose this? Will you see these codes? So for some reason, I guess in 1980, people were choosing between groups of states. That's no longer the case. So nobody will report 61 in 2022. Okay, or looks like nobody says 99. They couldn't figure out which state they're in. So I guess that's good too. We can click on case count view, and this tells us how many surveys were filled out which have this code. So this is an interesting way, I guess, of seeing. Well, first you can see kind of ballpark how many people are filling out these surveys, and you can see I've got a lot. I've got 167,000 just in California. But also, this is basically a frequency, right? This is a frequency distribution within the data for this categorical variable. So I want that. Add to my cart. I think I've already got it. So let me go back. Return to geographic variables, and you can click back. It's not like my jury. It won't panic if you click the back button. It's perfectly fine with that. But I've already got it. Add it to the cart. Now, let's say my research question is, does majoring in economics improve your salary? So I'm like going to look through here. These household variables just aren't really doing it for me, but you should kind of browse around here, see what's in here. I'm already a little bit familiar with it, so I'm going to skip ahead, but feel free to browse through all of this and just see what's in here. I already know, but I want education, so I'm going to click here and see what are they going to tell me about a person's education. Okay. So I want to know if majoring in economics increases salary. So I better find some variable for what's their college major. Field of degree looks promising, so let me check that one. It describes which field the person received a bachelor's degree in. That looks promising. I can click on codes, and again, it's going to send me, or it's going to give me just codes for this. It's not going to say law in this variable in my data. It's going to say 32. Their degree was 32. Okay, but these are what the codes all mean. I can do case counts and see which are the common majors and kind of how many people I've got in here. Business, 178,000. That's quite common. Education is common. Not surprising. Okay. There's a weird thing happening here, which this one is NA, not available. If I do case count view, there's a heck of a lot of those. 2.4 million NAs. What does NA mean? Well, if you click on Universe, and if you use CPS and I believe the health surveys, this might say NIU, not NA. But it's a similar idea. If you click on Universe, it will tell you who is actually answering this question. Because the way that these surveys work is if there are questions that don't make sense for a person, given the things that they've already said, they can skip it. So probably what happened here is there's a question earlier in the survey which says, do you have a bachelor's degree? Or how much education do you have? If they say they have a bachelor's degree, then they will ask them this question, okay, which field? But if they don't, they skip it. And if they skip it, according to this coding system, they get a 0, which means not A. It's not available. We didn't ask them this question because it doesn't make sense. You can also kind of figure that out sometimes by looking at this tab, questionnaire text. You can actually see, in some cases, what did the survey actually ask them. So this question focuses on a bachelor's degree, so please tell us what your major or majors were for your bachelor's degree. Okay, which is what I expected. But yes, I definitely want that. If I go back to codes, you might also sometimes see that there are detailed codes. So now this is far more detailed. It will tell me agricultural economics instead of just general agriculture. That's good. And how do I know which of these I'm getting? Well, if I go back to education variables, this field of degree is general. Field of degree 2, this will be detailed. So if you see same variable name with a 2, it just means there's more detailed coding systems. I'll just take both. And so you can see it's adding up my variables now. I got 5 because I've now added in this field of degree. Okay. I also need income. So I might search through here a little bit. I want to know how much money people make. Now this is where I kind of need to take a look and see how do I want to measure this, and I need to think about what am I measuring here. So I think getting a economics degree would make you more money in your job, so it's not family income, but is it wage and salary income that I want, or is it total personal income? Well, let's look and see what they mean. INCTOT reports pre-tax personal income or losses from all sources. So what that means is even Social Security checks, any dollar amounts received in any way, all sources, they all come here. It's not really quite what I want. Let's check and see if this is better. INC wage, pre-tax wage and salary income. In other words, the money you received as an employee for the previous year. That seems better. And let's see what code says. Okay, it says this is a 7-digit numeric code, so it's not, there's no categories here, and there's not going to be like little codes I need to match. It's just going to give me a number, a 7-digit number, pre-tax wage and salary income. Observations where it's not applicable or not in the universe are provided below. Okay. So this is where it gets really important to know what codes go in here. This code is going to be very important. 99999, maybe missing some nines, means not A, not available. But it's just going to show up as 6 nines in the data. In other words, you might think this person makes $1 short of $1 million. That's not what it means. So we're going to have to do something about that later. Same thing. 5 nines and an 8, $2 short of $1 million. That means it's missing. We don't, for some reason, we don't have their income. We don't want to treat them as $2 short of a millionaire when we actually do our analysis. So again, these codes are really important. In general, a lot of income variables also are top coded so that if you see a, if you go and analyze the California data and you find that there's this guy who reports a salary of 47.61 million, and you're like, well, I bet I can figure out who that is. Yeah, you probably can. It's probably LeBron James. And then you could find everything else about LeBron James' life by looking at the survey data. So they top code it. If people report income above a certain amount, it just is capped at that one, and that's the income that gets reported. So for American Community Survey after 2003, it's just the 99.5th percentile in that state, and then it gets top coded. If top coded data are an issue in your research, we should talk about it. I'm gonna click Universe. Anybody who is over the age of 16 will answer this questionnaire text. Sometimes this might help too, because you might wonder, is this just like the salary that's listed on the job, or what's included here? Commissions, bonuses, tips. Tips are also in here too. So everything people make from their jobs shows up here. We don't have to worry that jobs that are heavily reliant on tips, we're getting a bad number. No, tips are included, so this can be helpful to understand your data as well. So suppose I like this one, return, add it. All right, now you're gonna play around with your lot, and you're gonna eventually keep adding in variables that you think are important for predicting whatever your Y variable is. Let me just add one more, race. Let me add that one. Make sure I know how it works. Codes. All right, these are all the races people are allowed to report within the ACS. So if I see somebody's race is 5, that means they're Japanese. Okay. Now you're going to keep going, picking out variables. How well somebody speaks English, maybe you want that. Veteran status. Maybe you want to know where they're in the military. Add that one. All right, now you've spent quite a bit of time searching through your data source to get an idea for what you could find in here, and you're ready. You've got however many variables you've got up here, probably more than 8. And now we're ready to go. We want to get this data, we want to bring it into R, we want to start analyzing it. I'm going to click View Cart. It's going to be a listing of all of the variables I've selected. A lot of these will be pre-selected, like we think you want this, so we're going to just include it even though you didn't check it. If you download it like this, that's fine. Honestly, I'm never going to use person weight, person number. There's a lot of identifying variables in here, group status, strata, cluster, household weights. We're not going to need to use weights necessarily. Serial numbers, whatever, sample. Maybe I'll keep year so that I can actually just keep in mind which year these survey data are corresponding to, but otherwise, I think that should do it. So I can uncheck some if I want. I can add more samples, add more variables, but let's go. Create data extract. Now I want to pull this data out. One sample, 9 variables. Data format should be CSV. We know how to bring a CSV file into R, so CSV is good. We shouldn't need to change the data structure at all. Estimated size will depend on how many rows are in your data. So this is something like 0.1 gigabytes if I'm doing the conversion correctly in my head. We probably don't need to do much with these options necessarily. The last thing I want to do is describe my extract. So what I'm doing here is making an IPUMS tutorial, but you might describe to yourself what you are actually pulling this for, because what we're going to be able to do is kind of save this so that if a month from now you decide, oh, I should have added that other variable that I saw and I didn't add it, you can actually come in here and revise your extract, add that additional variable, download it again, drop that CSV file back into your folder, run all your code, and nothing will be changed other than you'll have that one more variable. You won't have to start all the way over. But describe your extract, tell yourself, what is this one? And then submit. So I've already messed around in here enough that I've got other extracts, and so you can see here's my immigration project. I can come back in here and say, I want to revise this because I missed a variable, or I want to add more samples, right? So now my file is ready to go for my IPUMS tutorial. I can download my CSV. This will probably download in a zip file, unzip it, get your CSV file, drop it in your folder for your project, and you're ready to go working on it in R. The other thing you might do is click on this basic code book, and what this will show you is all of the codes that are going to be helpful for you in the variables you chose. So now I can refer back to here, and Kansas is 20 in the state variable, or in my race variable, 1 is white, or it looks like it gave me a detailed race, which I didn't even know I was getting, but great, really detailed race data. Cool. Okay, so I could copy and paste all this or download this so that I have it, because you'll see I can't actually get the code book back later on these projects, although it wouldn't be a big deal if I didn't get the code book right away. Let me show you something. If I click revise on immigration, because I want to go back in and add variables, I've already got 28 in here. I can click show. Okay, I've got all of these. Maybe I wanted to look back at birthplace as a variable, because I don't know what the codes are. That's fine. I can click there, codes, and I can always come back here and find it, and then it will tell me if they say 210, that's Central America. So not the end of the world if you skip the downloading of the code book. You can always go back. You can always click my data here, and this will bring you to your extracts. I want to get this CSV so that I can start working in